I got some tips to make your adventure through the New Game Plus mode more pleasant, especially if you play on the ultra hard difficulty. If you got any tips of your own, let me know in the comments down below and don't forget to hit the like button. I already shared some tips on how you can best prepare before going into the New Game Plus mode. Totally check them out if you haven't already, but this video is more about sharing tips for while playing this new mode. Some make sense for every New Game Plus session, but others are more for if you're playing on the ultra hard difficulty. This of course also added with the latest patch. Let's start with the Shield Weaver. I get a ton of questions during my streams on why am I not using the Shield Weaver armor, the best armor in the game, the secret armor. And that's because I think that other outfits are better in the ultra hard mode of the game in my opinion. It depends on the situation. For if you're fighting one machine, the Shield Weaver is still great because the machine hits you, it gets negated, and then you can just do a counter attack and kind of focus on that one machine. Well, against multiple enemies, something that will happen of course really often in the main story missions, the Shield Weaver can only take one hit before making you vulnerable for all the incoming attacks, dealing 100% of the damage, and on ultra hard that is a lot. In an upcoming video I will go way more in depth on where the Shield Weaver stands right now, if it's still the best armor in the game, but later on in this video I will tell you what I do in terms of armor and modifications. As you probably know, in the New Game Plus mode there are new weapons and armors that you can unlock called Adept. I made a video going way more in depth on what they all do, totally check it out if you haven't already, but for this tip, I think it's smart to buy the armor or the weapon that you use most often as soon as possible, unless it's a lodge weapon. I'm a frequent sharpshot bow user, so I want to get my Adept sharpshot bow right away for that extra modification slot, dealing a ton of extra damage. Why no Adept warbow, blast sling or rope caster? Well, because you will be able to earn Adept versions of the lodge weapons, as you see here, thanks to Daniel for sending me those pictures. These weapons have the added bonuses from the regular lodge weapons, but then just like every Adept item, it has an extra 4th mod slot for faster freezing your targets, trapping them or dealing a ton of damage in the case of the Adept Lodge Blast Sling. Especially in the ultra hard mode, it's not smart to buy the non-lodge versions of these weapons because everything costs a ton. I hear you ask, how much? Well, over on Reddit, Throwaway made a very detailed post detailing everything that you need in terms of resources and also shards to get all the Adept weapons and armors in the ultra hard difficulty. Spoilers, a lot, 142,000 shards to get everything, and that's without all the machine parts. So yeah, it can really take a long time to get everything. In terms of armor, I would wait until you get access to the Shadow Stalwart Adept outfit. That will of course be the Shadow Stalwart Heavy, but just with 4 slots, and you get access to that at the end of the game. Like when you're almost done, you get access to the light version, and then you will be able to buy the Adept version in the shop. If you can't wait for an armor with 4 slots, you can of course go for the Karja Trader Adept, but in the end the Shadow Stalwart Adept is of course better because it also has the negation of blinding effect. And oh, if you didn't know, there's no new Shield Weaver outfit, so unless you value your ghost level and you wanna get as high as possible, you might want to skip the Shield Weaver quest because it only gives you XP. So what can you do with those weapons and those outfits to survive the New Game Plus mode? Although, do you need to survive the New Game Plus mode if you're playing on another difficulty than the ultra hard mode? Because I really think that this is easier than the first playthrough, unless you play on the ultra hard mode. And this is because you can simply just jump around already, have the hunting reflexes, so slow down the time, you have the multiple arrows that you can use all at the beginning, and of course have the Shield Weaver and all the other outfits and weapons at your disposal at the beginning. In ultra hard though, it can be tricky, so you have to think about the gear you will use for the certain moments. Like I said, the Shield Weaver is great for 1v1, fighting against Eclipse though, or other bow using bandits. An outfit like the Karja Silk Heavy with 3 mod slots for resist to range attacks is better. Fighting machines that charge at you, so do more melee damage, they can go for armor with melee resist and put melee mods in there as well. The Karja of course also works with 3 melee resist mods. The stealth armor with stealth mods can also help during your adventure, since in the ultra hard mode it can be smart to just ignore the fight completely. Sneaking around in bandit camps can be super handy, then you will not only save your resources, but also creating an advantage, because when the fight might break out, you still have less enemies to kill. Like I said, with the stealth kills, they are nice because you don't have to use resources, you're just using your spear. The same can be said for the hunter bow, that is great in the early game with hardpoint arrows. They deal enough damage to kill the early machines and enemies, and then you don't have to spend your wires for arrows from the sharpshot bow, something you want to do later when the enemies get tougher, and it would suck that your wires are like gone and you have to buy them from the shop because they're super expensive. So of course, using your spear for stealth kills can really help for saving resources, but also using your spear as a melee weapon. There has to be a disclaimer though, because the spear is way less powerful than you're used to, not knocking down enemies when expected. So you can kill watchers in one blow and other low level machines, but when you fight, like for example a sawtooth, it's way smarter to just use your fire arrows, stay the heck away from that. They are way more aggressive, attack way faster, so using your spear that will not knock them down is not worth it. Saving your resources also has a lot to do with the health potions. They're super expensive now and super useful, of course, in the ultra hard mode. So using your medication bar is always preferred. Make sure you pick up a lot of plants along the way. You also want to keep your blast sling in your inventory in the early parts of the game, and even later if you don't really need it unless you are like stuck at a huge boss fight. Fire arrows are really needed in the early part of the game and also later when fighting the corrupted machines. So if you use all your blaze on your blast sling, then the blaze will disappear and then you have to buy it from the store for a lot of money, and that means that you can buy your Adept weapons and armor way later, and you don't want that, of course. So yeah, New Game Plus mode not that hard unless you play on the ultra hard difficulty, where you really have to think about what mods do I use for what occasion, for what enemy, and of course resource management, making sure that you're not just throwing away resources that will be super handy later on in the game and cost a lot of money due to the increased prices. So yeah, there you have it, tips for the New Game Plus mode, especially on the ultra hard difficulty, that will make your experience better, that will make you get more out of that experience. I want to do a more in-depth analysis of the ultra hard mode. What does it do, like what is the impact on everything in the game, and how can you survive? So expect a ton of tips on the channel as well. A ton of awesome stuff is coming your way. Be sure to subscribe if you love Horizon Zero Dawn, like the video if you did, and I'll speak to you next time. Goodbye.